Hi everyone, welcome back to the final part of my review of the Zerode Katipo. You're going to get a bit more information about the bike, a few more riding clips, and at the end, if you like what you see, you can win this bike in one of Paul's competitions that's coming up very soon. The rims, well, the rims are a hot topic of conversation and certainly were while I was away on my Instagram, because I did have a lot of problems with the rims, and it's for a very unusual problem that I found a manufacturing fault with, or not fault, manufacturing process has led to there being 8 small holes around the side of the rim, which I have no idea why they're there, and I've looked on the internet and I can't figure out a reason why they're there. Now, they're right on the edge of the rim, and I just can't figure out why they're there. Because the rim tape, if I was cornering hard, the Stan's rim tape that came with the bike would also, the tyre would roll, the tyre bead would push the rim tape, and that would fail ever so slightly, and it would roll the rim tape off of the actual, of its surface on the rim, and it would expose the air to go straight out of these tiny little holes, which is right on the edge of the rim. And that happened so much that I can't even remember how many times. And it was incredibly frustrating because it would always move back to the position it was in before, but you burnt all your air out of the tyre. Initially, I couldn't figure out why it was doing it. And basically at the end, I found out that the Stan's rim tape just is not up to the job. So the problem I had was trying to find somewhere in New Zealand that stocked anything other than Stan's rim tape. And I did find some muck-off rim tape in the end, which did solve the problem. But it doesn't explain the fact that I don't see the point why these holes are in the rim. And lots of people have been in contact with me saying they've also had the same problem. And I just don't think they need to be there. And it's something that hasn't been highlighted in any other review of the rims that I can find. So that really put a downer on my time with the with the bike. The fact that, again, I was having tyre problems that I didn't. I was just so frustrated. I lose patience when it comes to having tyre problems. So, but the good thing is the rims were straight. They did not buckle. There did no dings in the rims or anything like that. The only thing I did was having to take the tyre off and the cush core off all the time just to redo the rim tape. And I must have redone the rim tape lots of times. And yes, I put electrical tape around the inside first. I cleaned the rim perfectly. I put the rim tape on perfectly. So there was lots of things that I did, and it still kept happening. And it's just the fact that the Stan's rim tape just isn't grippy enough for it. I didn't know this before I went away, and I've got Stan's rim tape on another bike of mine, and I've never had a problem. But whether it's just the cornering forces that I was experiencing, or because I'm riding bike parky stuff, maybe, I don't know. But certainly a problem that I've not encountered before. An advantage of this gearbox design is in the rear wheel, because you have even dish with the spokes side to side, and that really felt, I really felt the stiffness being an incredible positive because of that. And it's something that you wouldn't ever think about on your normal bike. You're never going to ride down the trail and go, oh yeah, my back wheel feels really stiff or anything like that. But as you're cornering, and you really notice how stiff the wheels are, and I was really impressed with that. And that's the only thing I can put it down to, is the fact that the dish is even on both sides. So I know there's not many manufacturers which have hubs which will enable that, as some people may just run a spacer on a regular hub system. But I know Hope do that, and these are factor hubs. I don't know anything about those, so certainly no problems with those whatsoever. Here's a clip from me riding a very nice flow trail in Queenstown, and after that we're going to be discussing the brakes. So one thing I haven't talked about so far is the brakes, and I'm going to do a fully separate review on those. So if you want to check out that video, that will be on the AstonMTB channel as well. But I'll briefly touch on them here. They are a Zerode Katipo brake, which is from a niche New Zealand brand. And basically it's one man's vision of the ultimate brake. So he's taken the best bits of brakes like Hope, Shimano, SRAM, and tried to amalgamate them all together. So you've got lovely machining like Hope. You use the same shape brake pads as Hope. You use a SRAM bleed kit to bleed the brakes, and these ones you use mineral oil in order to bleed them, and they have lovely braided hoses. So they're a very powerful brake, and whether you like a powerful brake or you like a brake that's got more modulation, that's entirely up to you. That's definitely personal preference. These were very much I would say on or off, basically. So extremely powerful. There was never ever an issue with power. But that's all I'm going to say about brakes, because check out my review on those as well, as I can go into quite a bit of detail on that.
Oh!
This bike is extremely playful and extremely fun. It just wants you to hop over roots, to style it out on any jump, to hit corners fast. It is brilliant for that. It's a really feel-good bike, and I think it's definitely surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be that good, but since jumping on my bike back home, again, I've mentioned it's a Specialized Enduro. That bike is such a planted bike. The pedals are low down, the bottom bracket's low, whereas this, the bottom bracket's higher. Even though the weight is in the gearbox there, it's still far higher than I'd expected, and it just feels more alive. So that's definitely a good thing, and I think any bike that can put a smile on your face like that, I think it's definitely worth a look. The suspension, well, I wasn't originally looking forward to using Fox suspension. Back home, I've got RockShox on my bike, and I love it, with a Super Deluxe rear shock air. I've also had a coil shock when it's required, and I've also got Z forks on my Specialized Enduro. So I've been very happy with those. I've not quite got on well with Fox in the past, but these 36 factory and X2 float rear shock were absolutely great. Had enough small bump sensitivity, they could take the big hits, they didn't require huge amounts of messing around. That's partly down to the fact that the frame geometry works so well, but also the leverage ratio, it's clearly tuned for the shock. Sorry, the shock is clearly tuned for the bike and how the leverage ratio is meant to work. And the fork wasn't diving through the travel, wasn't causing any issues. I wasn't getting to the bottom of the trail going, oh, I've got no traction there, or my wheels washing out or anything like that. It was great, and I didn't need to do too much messing around with it at all. So towards the end of my trip, I ended up having a massive accident where I clipped my hand on a root sticking out of a tree, which sent me into a huge crash where the bike ended up having a big tumble down the hill. Unfortunately, I snapped the frame. This is the old chainstay, and you can see here where it has snapped. Basically what has happened, I have no idea how, but the crank is perfectly in line with where the crank is, and the crank was bent as well. So I think in the crash what's happened is, while my foot's been on it, the crank has basically hit there and it's broken the frame, and it's obviously, yeah, it's destroyed the crank as well. So I think that would have happened to any carbon fibre frame. The crash was one of the biggest crashes I've ever had, and I don't think that is a negative of the Zerode at all. I wouldn't go, oh my god, that's like Greg Minnaar's frame snapping in half or something like that, which that happened a few years ago in the World Cup. But I'm impressed that it was actually only that was the only damage, that and the crank that was bent. Didn't even have any scratches on it. So what I did was just went to Zerode and purchased a brand new chainstay and a brand new set of cranks, which were very reasonably priced, £225 for this, which is actually cheaper than if I were to get this repaired by a carbon repair company in the UK, and came with the bearings already pressed in as well. So that was very good. The cranks were £85 as well for a brand new set of the Pinion cranks. So really impressed with how fast the delivery was. It was 24 hours, but I was in New Zealand and it is a New Zealand brand. So I don't expect it to be that fast worldwide unless they end up getting dealers around which have all these spare parts in the country that you are living in. So that was one of the big talking points, was just how the bike held up. And other mechanics notes from the trip, well, I was a bit injured after the crash, so when the bike came home with me, I handed it off to my trusty mechanic, who ended up stripping the entire bike down and replacing the chainstay, the cranks, and anything else that needed doing on the bike. So what did he have to report? Well, all in all, it was very good. Really impressed again with the integration of the gearbox into the frame. He had to take it off just to give it a clean, that type of thing. We've replaced the shifter surround because that was broken as well. So that's one of the negatives, I think, is the grip shift. This area sticking out at the bottom of the grip shift where the wires go in, that's a bit exposed, and that could be prone to breaking with an impact. So the only other thing to mention were the bearings in the frame down here, the main pivot bearings. Now, they were pretty shot. So after 5 weeks worth of use, albeit heavy use, they needed replacing. Apart from that, the bike has performed flawlessly. Maintenance wise, there was nothing else wrong with it at all. Wheel bearings are excellent, still like new. Headset bearings like new. The dropper post is excellent, still works like new. So it has been a brilliant bike. So would I buy one? That's the big question. Well, in New Zealand, this isn't actually a particularly expensive bike. It comes in at 9,000 New Zealand dollars, which is around 4,500 British pounds. And for what you get, it's not actually bad value for money at all at that money. Now, if you were to buy this in Europe or anywhere else for that matter, it does become quite a bit more expensive because of the local tax charges and shipping. But at £4,500, you can't argue for what you get. If you're talking, you know, paying £6,000-7,000 for it, well, at that sort of money, I would want to wait for the electronic trigger shift with the new gearbox. That's what I would do, but I wouldn't hesitate to buy one if the price was right, absolutely. And I certainly think that the advantages of running a gearbox bike far outweigh the disadvantages. Absolutely fabulous bit of kit. I love my time with it, and I'm really sad to see it go, actually. Thanks everyone for watching the videos and watching me ramble on about the bike. This is the first for me doing this type of video, so hopefully I'll get a bit better, and hopefully it's been quite informative, and may make people want to buy or not buy one of these bikes and its components. So thanks very much.